Hello, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Nattinee Jitnarin, a researcher from NDRI-USA Inc., based in Leawood, Kansas, and my work focuses on firefighter health and behavioral risk factor within the fire service. Today, I'm going to present and just like show you some emerging issue that many people may not immediately recognize. The high prevalence of smokeless tobacco use in the fire service. Before we go further, this presentation gonna define smokeless tobacco, or in short, SLT, as an oral, non-combustible tobacco product that contain nicotine. The following slide also details specific example and form of smokeless tobacco. So this one is shown as the chewing tobacco. Is available in variety in form as loose leaf, plucks, or twists. Next is the snuff or dips. Come in forms such as fine cuts and long cut, and then the emerging one is called pouch or bandits. Generally, we use the term, like chewing, snuff, or dip interchangeably, but it's gonna be under the umbrella of smokeless tobacco. So over the past few decades, the fire service has achieved something very important. Cigarette smoking among firefighters have dropped significantly, in many cases well below the national average. However, an unintended consequence has emerged as smoking declined due to policy like smoke-free firehouse or strong fitness standard. Smokeless tobacco use has increased within the firehouse environment. So when we celebrate the success of reducing smoking, we now need to address this new pattern of nicotine use in the fire service. Research shows that smokeless tobacco use among career firefighters is almost 3 times the national average for adult men. In fact, the prevalence of smokeless tobacco use among firefighters is in line with some of the highest used occupation groups in the country, such as Marines, 23%, or close to the those who work in the miners, like 19%. This tells us the tobacco behavior in this population isn't just about individual choice. It reflects something deeper happening within this occupational environment. This slide highlights an important pattern that we observe in our firefighter cohort. Among current smokeless tobacco users, the average use is around like 37 years. Typically, the firefighter join the service in their early 20s, around like 24, and when we average their enter the service age, and about 38% of users initiate smokeless tobacco use after joining the service. This suggests smokeless tobacco use may not simply follow firefighter into the job. It may develop within the fire service environment. So the next question that we ask is, what aspect of the firehouse environment that contribute to this pattern? Several factors intersect here. Occupational pressure and department policy, the target marketing by tobacco industry, and deeply ingrained cultural norms within the firehouse. When these factors interact, they create the condition where smokeless tobacco become normalized and even socially reinforced. So understanding this environment driver is essential if we want to decide the effective solution. Now I'm going to talking about like the first factor that could be influence about the smokeless tobacco use in fire service. So we have the strict smoking bans inside the firehouse and apparatus. So this policy were designed to protect health, and they have been very effective to reducing smoking. But nicotine dependence doesn't simply disappear. Indeed, it shifts into the different form. Smokeless tobacco provide a discreet, smoke-free alternative that firefighters can use during their on duty in the firehouse, when they're doing the paperwork or inside the station. In some cases, they report that they can even use it underneath their breathing apparatus or SCBA during the fire call. Another factor that has contributed to this issue is targeted marketing by the tobacco industry. Historically, the fire service has been viewed as highly valuable demographic. Tobacco company has aligned their branding with the heroic image of first responders, sometimes featuring firefighter in this marketing campaign, as you see over here, or they use donating equipment to their departments. So this strategy is reinforce the connection between tobacco use and the identity of the professions. Next is because firefighters, they work in extremely close team where trust and peer culture are essential. So within this culture, smokeless tobacco can become part of the ritual, like passing a smokeless tobacco tin to serve at bonding activity after a difficult call, or offering a dip can be a way of reinforcing social tie that celebrate a job well done, or encourage the newbies coming to their firehouse. So this culture practice can make tobacco use more socially accepted and sometimes expected. The next major driver is stress management. Firefighters experience intense occupational stressors such as trauma, sleep deprivation, and long shift, and suddenly adrenaline spike when they're getting a call. So for some individuals, smokeless tobacco become a coping mechanism that offering a quick chemical release that can give them the mental escape during the downtime or after the critical incidents. So this highlight an important connection between tobacco use and behavioral health within these populations. So quitting smokeless tobacco in the fire service can feel like a high stake of tug of war. So they often want to quit, but they face many factors such as biological nicotine dependence, environmental trigger, and occupational demands that require constant alertness. So this create a daily tension between the reality of the job and then they desire to protect their long-term health. These are three major barriers that firefighters frequently report. So the first one, smokeless tobacco, or these habits. It's become the habit that embed in their daily routine. Once they be on call, once they've been on the job, once they after done with their meal, the smokeless tobacco, they're chewing, they're dipping, is come with them. The second is the withdrawal symptom, such as headache, irritability, jitter, something like that, or difficult concentrating even can be challenging in this occupation when they need to concentrate on their work. The next one is the environment. Many departments, they lack tailored cessation resources. So firefighter cannot have the resource that fit what they want. The majority of resource is talking about smoking cessation. Not many resource gonna talking about the smokeless tobacco cessation. And sometimes when you want to quit, they see their peer, their crew member still chewing, still dipping. So it's just hard for them to quit using the smokeless tobacco. So this barrier make quitting especially difficult without the support. So despite this challenge, firefighters also report just like there's some big motivator that help them or encourage them to quit. The most powerful one is family support. So they desire to be present for their family, for their spouse, for their children. Health concerns also play their important roles for them because once they become aware of the long-term risk of using smokeless tobacco, they would like and they want to quit. In some department, the operational incentives such as wellness program benefit or health insurance discount can also encourage them to quit using smokeless tobacco. Because standard, as I said earlier, because standard smoking cessation often don't address smokeless tobacco or firehouse culture. So at NDRI-USA, we developed the program called QuizBit that we tailor or design the program specifically for firefighter to focus on unique challenge that they face for their everyday works. So in this program, we create like four step. We call like four step operation framework, which similar to their SOP, which resonate with their structure that they use in their daily work. So the goal is provide a tool for them to align with that fire service culture. So for the first the first two steps, we focus on preparation. Step one is get ready. This help firefighter to identify their personal motivation for quitting and mentally prepare for the process. So next is plan to quit. So when they're gonna specify the trigger, what that trigger inside the firehouse or the trigger when they're at home, and they deal with that. And we're gonna so for this step, we also develop strategy how to manage this trigger. This stage also emphasize the support from the family, from the crew member, because as I said earlier, that because they're based on trust, they work together. So the crew member gonna lift them up if they want to quit. So step three and step four, we focus on action and long-term success. Step three is now the real deal. It's about the quitting, excusing the plan, how they're gonna implement the plan, and learn the technique to cope with withdrawal symptom, how they deal with, I'm sorry, how they deal with stop using smokeless completely as cold turkey, or they're gonna do like fading over time. So they're gonna come up with a plan and stick with it. Step four, the last step is staying quit. So involve developing the healthier coping strategy for success and how they're gonna deal with stress. So after done with quitting, a lot of withdrawal symptoms gonna happen over here. How they deal with it in the long term. So the goal here is just not just quitting, but help them to sustaining the change over time. So this is just like what we plan for the fire service because they always help us as the public service. So as us as a researcher, we want to help them as well. So if you need to know more about the QuizBit program, you can scan the QR code or visit science2station.org to access the program or explore the other work that we do. And thank you so much for coming and then attending the presentation. In case you need the have any question, feel free to email me and we could get in touch. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Jitnarin. And I'm quickly going to play a short video. Uh,
Just bear with me.
yeah, no worries. Take your time. I can actually pull it up for you if you're
Oh,
ready.
yes, please
Okay,
do.
perfect. So let's see. We're going to do this. We're going to share sound and got that. Everyone can see this, hopefully.
Firefighter. What comes to mind?
Hear
It's
it?
probably a hero, right? Someone in absolute peak
Yeah, we can hear it.
ready to run into a burning building. I mean, it's a job that demands just incredible fitness. So you'd think the official stance on something like tobacco would be pretty straightforward. And it is. The message from the big fire service organizations could not be clearer. You've got the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation just laying it out there. Stop using tobacco products, period. No room for interpretation on that one. It's a
Is
command.
that the video
Sense when you
showing?
think about the health and fitness required for the job. So that's the ideal, right?
Yeah, are
The
you not
official
able to
line.
see it?
But is that what's actually happening? Let's, peel back the layers and look at the data to see what's really going on in firehouses. All right, let's start with the one everyone thinks of first, cigarettes. But I'll tell you right now, the numbers here are probably not what you're expecting. There's a real twist in this story. So, a major study back in 2011 dug into this and found that among male career firefighters, the rate of current cigarette smoking was 13.6%. But, a number like that without any context doesn't really mean much. So, what's the deal with 13.6%? Well, here's where it gets interesting. You might hear 13.6% and think, wow, that's kind of high. But check this out. That rate is actually lower than the smoking rates for guys in the US military, and it's also lower than the rate for the general adult male population at the time. So you're thinking, great, mission accomplished. Firefighters are winning the fight against cigarettes. Well, not so fast. This is where the story takes a really sharp turn, because that relatively low cigarette rate, it's hiding a completely different and frankly, a much bigger issue. Yeah, the real story here isn't about cigarettes at all. It's about a habit that you don't see, one that doesn't produce any smoke, but carries its own massive risks. We're talking about the hidden world of smokeless tobacco. And just so we're all on the same page, when we say smokeless tobacco, we're talking about stuff like chewing tobacco, snuff, or dip. You don't light it up, but it's still pumping your body full of nicotine and a whole bunch of carcinogens that are linked to some really nasty stuff, like oral cancers. Okay, now get ready for this. That same study found that a whopping 18.4% of male career firefighters were current users of smokeless tobacco. Think about that. That's a higher percentage than the one for cigarettes we just looked at. And to really put that number into perspective, researchers adjusted the data for age to make a solid apples-to-apples comparison. What they found was just stunning. The rate for male career firefighters, 21.2%, was almost identical to the rate for U.S. Marines, a group that is famous for having high rates of smokeless tobacco use. And here's the thing. This habit, it doesn't exist in a bubble. The research shows that for firefighters who use tobacco, it's often tied into a whole cluster of other health and safety risks. It's like a ripple effect. The study found that for these male career firefighters who smoke, that habit was often just the tip of the iceberg, a sign of other challenges they might be facing. For example, compared to their non-smoking buddies, the smokers were nearly 6 times more likely to report being diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And believe me, the connections did not stop there. They were also over 4.5 times more likely to admit to driving after having too much to drink. And this pattern just keeps going. Finally, they were almost 3 times as likely to have a potential drinking problem. And this was based on a standard medical screening tool. So when you put it all together, it really paints a picture of some deeply interconnected health concerns. But hold on, we are not done yet. There is another massive piece to this puzzle that honestly changes the entire conversation, and that is the gender divide. This is where the story becomes just jaw-dropping. After adjusting for age, the researchers found that 16.2% of male career firefighters are current smokers. Okay, now look at the rate for female career firefighters. It's just 1.9%. That is not a gap, my friends. That is a chasm. And the difference gets even more extreme when we look at smokeless tobacco. Remember that super high rate for men, 21.2%? Well, for women firefighters, the rate is just half of 1%. It is almost non-existent. So the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. When we talk about tobacco in the fire service, we're not looking at one big unified group. We are looking at 2 completely different populations with totally different behaviors, and the line that divides them is gender. So what do we do with all this? What does this story of myths, hidden truths, and these deep, deep divides really tell us about how we should be supporting the health of our firefighters? Let's break down the key takeaways. First, that old stereotype of the chain-smoking firefighter, it's pretty much a myth. The rates for men are actually not that high compared to other groups. The reality is a much bigger and hidden problem with smokeless tobacco, specifically among men. Third, there was an absolutely massive gender divide. Women in the fire service have incredibly low rates of tobacco use across the board. And finally, tobacco use seems to be a red flag, often connected to other serious health risks like anxiety and problem drinking. And all of this leaves us with one critical question. The data makes it painfully clear that a one-size-fits-all approach to health and wellness in the fire service is it's not going to work. So the real challenge becomes, when our heroes have such different needs, how do we actually tailor the support to make sure we're protecting all of them effectively?
Amazing. That was a really great video. I We also have another one that we're going to share in the recap later, but for time's sake, we're just going to move on to the question and answer section. So I'm quickly going to pull that up. And if Dr. Jitnarin is also ready, we'll get that started. Great. All right. So we have a few general questions that we like to ask all of our speakers, but we also have some questions that are specifically for fire, rescue, and EMS health. So that would be for you. So I'll start with the general questions. And our number one question is, how does tobacco use uniquely affect different groups of people compared to the general population?
I I feel like they the tobacco use just like affect everyone for me, just like as a researcher equally, but as a first responder for fire service, they have more risk than general population in terms of the occupational hazard because they exposed to the fire, to the call, to the alert, to the incident, just or the trauma most of their everyday life. So that's they're prone to get the effect from the tobacco use more unique than the general population. Um, that that I say earlier because of their health, that their occupational risk that different. So of course they get effect from tobacco use, and then they're prone to be susceptibility for the cancer or respiratory symptom or the CVD. I would say just like the odd of they getting those risks just like higher than general population because in terms of the occupational risk.
Hmm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I worked as an EMT for a while, and I saw a lot of my fellow EMTs where they vaped or they smoked or they used smokeless tobacco. So that's really
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
I can add into that the stress, that because of the stress management, the nicotine use just like gonna, because that they believe that nicotine use gonna kind of get them chill after the incidents, after the stress, or it could be one of the factor that we do the interview with them when they're waiting for the call, the boredom, just like they need something to kill the time. So sometimes like smokeless tobacco use just like into the picture.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
imagine there's a lot of like waiting around for calls, so that definitely makes sense.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I know we talked a little bit about this in your presentation, but what trends have you noticed in tobacco use over time?
I think it's similar for this occupational group. It's similar to general population that smoking rate, going down. Thank you for the public health policy, so that's why. But the other form of the tobacco has emerged. Now it's more like chewing, dipping, and lately you see the vaping. And then now and again within the general population, the youth going to go more e-cigarette, and then they will go more for the pouch because they try to affect the influence the youth more. And we see the trend of those who enter the fire service now they do not do the smoking anymore, but they do that pouch. They do can I say the brand start with a Z. Yeah, it's more because it's discreet that what you say, they still can talk, they still can communicate, they still be on call, but no one say them using smoking. So that's our in trend right now. Yeah. The other form of the tobacco use. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's called Zyn. I think there's also Velo or Velo, just some of them. I feel like they're always coming out with new brands.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so you talked a little bit about public health policies and also just community initiatives, but what do you think these policies and initiatives play in, like, what part do they play in reducing tobacco use and protecting overall health?
The first thing is the smoking free building, it's totally completed before because before if you looking into the documentary, people still can smoke on the airplane, when they commute, but not there anymore. And in the workplace, smoke free policy in the workplace, and also as the tobacco taxation, just like you tax tobacco more, so people with the high price so they can buy less, and even the public education program. I think all those combined help the trend or shift the trend of using tobacco use from smoking cigarette to something else. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's always so crazy to me that they were able to smoke on airplanes once upon a time. I just like cannot
Yeah.
ever understand how that works out. But so I know that, firefighters especially are exposed to a lot of chemicals, toxic chemicals, especially with the smoke that they often deal with. So what health problems can tobacco use or exposure to this secondhand smoke, whether that's from just like hazards of the job or the smoke from tobacco, contribute to or worsen in these environments that they're in?
Um, the I believe that their major concern about like in terms of health is lean toward cancer
Mm.
because occupational risk alone can contribute to that cancer, and then using tobacco on top of that, cancer is just like more like number one of the health concern. Next is gonna be the cardiovascular disease because they have to go outside and then combating with the fire. So cardiovascular disease and respiratory syndrome, including, those in lung cancer as well. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So kind of that's a good way to move on to our next question, which is how do you typically assess and or screen for tobacco and nicotine use, including maybe secondhand and thirdhand smoke exposure among fire, rescue, EMS, just those types of personnel?
As a researcher, we use the standardized questionnaire, like those standardized that we get is from NIH or Department of Defense. So with of that, so we can compare to the general population if we use the from the NIH, and then we can compare with the military if we use the standard questionnaire from the Department of Defense. So we typically ask them, current tobacco use, what form, the frequency of use, how long, that the same standardized question. That how we assess, and now that how we know, the data, the evidence, and we can translate this data and engage into the for the stakeholder or policy. So that's why we come up with the cessation program. If we just like, hey, firefighters is now they use smokeless tobacco use more. We need to change the policy. If we don't have that data, no one gonna listen. So that's why those questionnaire, those standards one help us, to put up the evidence into the policy.
Yeah. Awesome. So we also kind of talked about this a little bit. You mentioned, it causes some respiratory issues and cardiovascular strain. But what are some other common health outcomes that you kind of have been observing or studying among first responders that can be associated with maybe particularly tobacco or nicotine use, especially with this the new thing of the pouches and the e-cigarettes that are coming out that maybe are kind of too new to have any hard evidence, but maybe something you've noticed?
So far, as the general population that they're doing the research because it's a new product, you won't I wouldn't say you wouldn't see in the short term, but again, the long term, we still wait and see. But now the vaping, you already know that they have the effects on the respiratory system. We already know that. However, the pouch, with that the same mechanism of the chewing or dipping, would they insert them before between the mouth and the gum? I can see that the long term risk could be the gum disease, the similar to the dipping or chewing over there because of the high content of nicotine. You cannot see in 3 or 5 years, but again, in a long-term risk, I can see that pattern could develop because when they do the dipping or when they do the pouch, they always the habit die hard. They're gonna put that in the same place. So that's why the irritability of the of that place is gonna continue happen. So that's why I think like mouth cancer could be that we can see in the future. However, we won't know until we do the more research. That is a long-term goal for us to do the research with tobacco. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And how do you communicate these risks within your research or maybe through workplace wellness programs? If you're ever working directly with these personnel, how do you communicate these risks?
We normally do the publication, like this, the forum like this that give us the voice, to communicate with the public. And in the fire service, they also have the conference or sometimes they do like informal or formal conference. So we normally going there and presents our work. And we also have the website that we create for fire service slash first responder, science2station.org for the first responder to come and then to explore our work that we're doing with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. And you talked a little bit about just like the social aspect of tobacco and the spit use. So I'm kind of wondering how you approach tobacco cessation or even just like the harm reduction efforts, especially when individuals maybe cite stress, like shift work, or even that cultural acceptance as barriers to quitting.
The first thing that when we do, just like go to this talk to them, we assess their needs first, that what we know that there's no tailor or the program that design for the culture. So you can simply say, hey, please quit. But if they don't have motivation, if we don't explore their needs or their motivation to quit, it's going to be hard for them. And again, as the culture in firehouse culture, they're different than military culture or the dispatch culture. So that's why for me, I feel like in that different occupational group, they need to have the tailored cessation program for them that fit to their culture, that fit to their work, that fit to their structure. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tailor that decides specifically for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we talk about in some of our other presentations just how much like social acceptance plays a role in, the quitting barriers. So I totally understand that. So what are some evidence-based strategies, peer support programs, maybe even referral pathways, that you recommend to support tobacco cessation among these first responders?
Would you mind to repeat the question again?
Yeah, so just basically, maybe what interventions do you perhaps recommend to support the tobacco cessation, so quitting tobacco, to the first responders? Like, is there anything you maybe have noticed that is more successful when you have them adapt it or something like that?
But and again, and then it just like from my view, because there's so many cessation program out there, and now it can be online, just like Quitline, and then as you do have the cessation program as well, and I think just like every. I feel like from my perspective, so don't take my word
Mm,
much, but like from my perspective, every cessation program are successful if that individual stick with it and go with it. So let's say if you want to go for, like for a specific grid line, just stick with it. And I feel like that program going to be successful. So it's depend on individual that unless they will like, okay, I'm gonna shopping for this, and then they change the program every now and then, not stick with it. So I it's not calling the successful unless they stick with it. That is my point of view. Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And we kind of talked about emerging nicotine products and tobacco products. So obviously we have the e-cigarettes, we have the nicotine pouches, maybe the heated tobacco products that are starting to hit the market.
Mhm.
What research or policy gaps are you seeing regarding, the health impact or workplace safety or even acceptance among first responders?
As I previously mentioned, that because there's new product in the market, and I went to the FDA website the other day, they just improved five new of the nicotine pouch. So for those, the gap is how us as a researcher, how us as the just like the public health can can keep up with the tobacco industry. This is a big gap because they have like the big, lab, and how we can come up or keep up with them to have the get the general population the education, the concern, the awareness of the new product. I think that is the gap, and also as the health. And again, because the tobacco use did not kind of like it immediately health risk, but it's the long-term risk. So there is a gap of research over there. So we need to follow up. If we want, to know about the health risk, it's gonna be the long-term battle. That is a gap that I can see. Yep.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And my final question for you is we kind of talked about, or you in your presentation, you mentioned, driving under the influence and alcohol use, that type of situation. So I'm wondering if you've noticed any recent trends in tobacco or nicotine behaviors among these individuals, such as maybe dual use with alcohol, or, I know types of product use kind of seems to be more of the oral products than anything else, but also maybe vape sharing or the nicotine use during these exceptionally long shifts, maybe like these 12-hour shifts.
The common is we call dual use because some of they want to get off the smoking, but they can. So that's why they use the chewing or dipping when they're at the firehouse and they're smoking at home or vice versa. So that what we the dual use. Also, we found it what we call the cluster of behavioral risk. So those who drink alcohol tend to smoke, for something like that. So the trend is now and again because of the younger generation come up to go enter the service. So we see the different trend that they use the new product and again with the peer pressure. I once not using the peer pressure much, but with the culture. Oh, I would love to try the chewing. So it's more like so now we can see like not only the one tobacco product that they use, now we see more than one. That what the we see the trend now. So how again as us at the public health speaking, how we gonna fight with this? Instead of one, now we have to fight with two use and then three use and four use, who know? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I imagine the dual use is especially prevalent maybe with these smoke-free workplace policies
All
because
right.
they can just use the Zins during their shift and then when they go home they could smoke like
Yeah.
actually inhale that type of situation. Okay, yeah,
Correct.
that makes
Hmm.
sense. And
Hmm.
we're gonna move into the audience question section and I already see a question popped up in the chat from Christopher Hemberger. And he asks, are firefighters provided with education early in their careers regarding the cultural acceptance and use of smokeless tobacco within the profession?
In the department, as the fire service policy, they always have the what they call health and wellness initiative. So once they enter the service, they always have that program embedded, and just like kind of the train beside their fire service working job, vice versa. So the health and wellness initiative. They lightly touch about the smokeless tobacco, but but they mention about tobacco use in general. So they have the training in there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And I also encourage anyone who has any additional questions to come off mute. If you don't feel comfortable, you could put it in the chat and I'll read it. But yeah, so if anything comes up, I think one I have just to kind of get the ball rolling is, do you believe that this is actually, as we all know, tobacco actually can harm the long-term mental health of these individuals. So I imagine, do you believe that they don't understand that maybe, and that's why they use it to kind of deal with the stress from the job? Or what do you think we can do about that?
Um, I think it's similar to the other. They thought that smokeless tobacco use give them less harm is more safe than their health than smoking. So
Mm.
that's why several of the firefighters shift into that because before we come up with the cessation program, we just went to, like different firehouse and, do the interview. So some of them mention about the safer, like using the chewing or dipping is more safe than smoking. So that's what created the trend as well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And I see Marvin has his hand raised, so feel free to come off mute, ask your question.
Hi, good morning. Just a question because I'm not aware too much about the smokeless tobacco regulation on a federal level or state level uh, in terms compared to like the nicotine that there's age requirement that you can buy it from. Is smokeless tobacco is there an age requirement or if you're 18, you're able to just buy it?
Yep, similar to buy cigarette. Yep, the same age. Because they behind the counter. So you have to show your ID. That's
Okay.
similar to the smoke.
Yeah, and just for clarification, in New Jersey, that age is 21.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Does anyone else have any additional questions? Like I said, you can feel free to come off mute, or you could put it in the chat and I'll ask. And if you think about some as I'm going through the resources, feel free to put those in the chat too, and we can revisit them. So I'll just give everyone like 30 seconds to think about it, and I'll start sharing my screen for our resources. Okay. And I'm assuming everyone can see my screen all good.
Yep.
Perfect. Alrighty. So once again, I'd really like to thank Dr. Jitnarin for joining us today. Your expertise is truly invaluable. We really appreciate having you here. I personally find this stuff so interesting because when I worked as an EMT, I saw a lot of my colleagues use smokeless tobacco and just nicotine in general, and it was disheartening and sad to see it. But I also kind of understood it's a very stressful job. So people are seeking, that relief. So I understand that too as well. But for the people who protect us, it's important that we protect them back. So I think, yeah, we really appreciate having you. So I'm just going to go over some of the New Jersey-based cessation resources we offer. So here are some of our resources. We have New Jersey Quit Line. We have Mom's Quit Connection for families, and of course, we have the Tobacco Free for Healthy New Jersey Quit Centers. For New Jersey Quit Line, you can call 1-888-657-8677 to enroll into the New Jersey Quit Line. Those who qualify will receive 2 weeks of the free nicotine replacement patches. And once enrolled with a Quit Coach, there's access to an online portal with digital resources. I'm going to be going into a little bit deeper for each of these shortly, but right now I'm just giving the main gist. For Mom's Quit Connection for families help those who care for a child aged 8 years old or younger quit smoking. There's unlimited counseling sessions, personalized quit plans, and resources to prevent relapse. So you don't have to be a mom or a dad. You can also be maybe a caregiver of any sort. So if you are an older sibling caring for your younger sibling, perhaps a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt, even if you're a teacher and you work with these children, more than a certain amount of time a day, we consider you eligible for Mom's Quit Connection. And we also have the New Jersey Quit Centers, which provide you the opportunity to quit with a support group. They provide free NRT for those who qualify and also free counseling as well. So, a little bit more about each of our statewide tobacco services. So, we have our New Jersey Quit Line. We have youth and adult programs. So, our youth programs are for people between the ages of 13 and 17, and adult programs are for anyone over the age of 18. For this one, you must be ready to quit. We offer 24/7 telephone and web-based counseling, free nicotine patches for qualified callers, which is pretty much anyone over the age of 18 who's looking to quit. We offer 5 sessions per attempt and 2 attempts per year. So if you add that together, that's about 10 sessions per year, which is great. And you could be referred by your provider. You could self-refer. We have links on our Facebook and our Instagram and all of that. You could also call this number right here. We also have Mom's Quit Connection for families, which is for pregnant mothers or caregivers with a child aged 8 years old and younger. You do not need to be ready to quit, so you could be at any point in your quitting journey and be eligible for Mom's Quit Connection for families. We offer telephone or face-to-face counseling in your community, standard business hours, so that's the 8 to 5 during the week. And this one has unlimited sessions as well. We also offer Quit for Kids, which is for pregnant mothers or caregivers with a child aged 8 and younger. You once again do not need to be ready to quit. You get a set of personalized text messages every week, and we have unlimited sessions for this as well. And you could also scan this QR code right here to order free resources. So a little bit more about New Jersey Quitline. Like I said, we offer youth and adult services. So youth are for children between the ages of 13 and 17, and adults over the age of 18. We offer access to online dashboard with self-help materials, including TikTok-like videos, animations, podcasts, quizzes, and access to chat with a certified quit coach. Some of the topics covered include health impacts of tobacco. We talk about teens and big tobacco, the cost, the financial cost, and also the environmental cost. We also talk about the social impact of big tobacco. We talk about peer pressure and the social aspects, including triggers, substitutes, and distractions. And we also discuss slips and sticking with the goal. So our podcast increase knowledge and skills and just some coping techniques as well. So for tobacco trainings and educations, we offer a few of these as well. We offer our Ask Advisor FIR, which is 1 CEU for CHES and nurses. It's a really great program. Maya actually is the main person who does it, and she's awesome. So that's really great as well. We also offer Tobacco 101, which is learning about the risks of tobacco use and tobacco's impact on health and communities. We offer Can We Talk, which is how to talk to youth about smoking and vaping. And this presentation is mainly oriented for the community members to teach them how to engage in conversations with their children and their students about the dangers of quitting smoking and vaping. Or not the dangers, but the dangers of smoking and vaping and how to quit. So we also have Get Ready to Quit, which is proven strategies and advice offered to individuals who are ready to quit smoking or vaping or know someone who is. We have our Smoking and Pregnancy collaboration with our PPI initiative to raise awareness and provide education about the health impacts of smoking on pregnancy. And we also have our Rinsey the Raccoon Rides Tobacco Free, which is a special educational campaign. It's a story time for children between the ages of 3 and 10 to learn about the dangers of secondhand and thirdhand smoke. We offer a Train the Trainer for this. It's really cute. The kids get a coloring book, they get stickers, we show them a video, and they really enjoy it. It's a great way to teach the younger generation about the dangers of smoking and vaping, secondhand and thirdhand smoke, without kind of scaring them too much. We also work with our colleagues at Tobacco Free for a Healthy New Jersey. Tobacco Free for a Healthy New Jersey is New Jersey's largest collaborative effort to reduce the health consequences of tobacco use and the harm from secondhand smoke exposure through prevention, education, and cessation. They have a lot of great policy actions, including smoke-free public places, smoke-free housing, and the point of sale initiatives. They also offer community initiatives such as the Tobacco Free Tuesday webinar, Don't Get Vaped In, which is a really great presentation about vaping and the dangers of vaping and nicotine. They also have Smoke Free AC, and some other programs they offer is Incorruptible Us, NJ Quits, and Working Well Tobacco Free. So, from me and everyone at the Cooperative, thank you so much for being here today. We're going to be having another one of these presentations next month. I don't have the date and time just yet, but if you join our listserv, I'll make sure to keep you updated whenever possible. And yeah, once again, I'd like to open the floor to any questions and thank Dr. Jitnarin again heavily for, being here today, for sharing your expertise with us. So, Maya, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you everyone for joining us today as well and for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here and to listen to our talk with Dr. Jitnarin. We really hope that you learned something today, and we would very much appreciate it if you take our post-webinar survey as well. It helps us a lot, and it is useful for us planning these webinars as well.
And if you have any questions or concerns, you could feel free to email Dr. Jitnarin. You could email me as well, and we'll make sure to send these videos and anything else in our recap email that we're sending shortly.